Hello, it's Duncan here, the roving reporter for Let's Test with Rajesh Mathur. Hi, Rajesh, how you doing?
I'm good. Hi, Duncan. Very well, thank you.
Good, glad to hear it. Thanks for your time out today. Appreciate that.
hmm
So you're currently a test delivery manager at Cafe Pacific. Just wondering what that role entails and how is it different from just
I am.
test manager?
So, Cathay is as an airline. It's pretty different than normal IT companies. So, roles, titles, they differ from other companies. So, task delivery manager role is basically a kind of a role which manages vendors, testers, multiple projects, programs. So, as a test delivery manager, I have to manage multiple programs, test deliverables, test approaches, strategies, estimates. Stakeholder management is one of the biggest thing for me. Vendor management,
Right.
resourcing, and obviously testing deliveries through an offshore and an onshore model. So multiple responsibilities, budgets, and all.
Fantastic. So they
Yep.
keep you on they keep you on your toes.
Oh, sorry, say it again.
They keep you on your toes.
Yes, they do keep me on my toes, man.
So
Too much of work, and mhm.
how did you end up in this role? What's your journey so far in your career?
So I was before this role, I was working in England, working for Boots as a program test manager. And after Boots, when I was working there, someone called me from Hong Kong, one of the agencies, and agency said, "Would you like to come to Hong Kong? And this is a job with an airline." And I said, "Yeah, definitely. Why not? Money looks good, role looks good, cheaper flights or sometimes free flights internationally." And yeah, I took this role. And basically, they were starting a they were setting up a new testing service. So Cathay did not have a strong testing arm before I arrived here. So when I arrived, I started working on that. So it all looked very good to me, and I took it. So from England to pretty cold England to a very warm and humid Hong Kong.
Fantastic.
So,
What part
but
of the
yeah,
Yeah,
I like it here. Yeah, thank you.
good. Good. Is it a good company to work for?
I'm sorry, you'll have to say it again.
A good company to work for.
Oh yes, it is. It is a very good company to work for, and benefits are good. They are pretty employee centric, and obviously I get an opportunity to work in Asia as well as roam internationally.
Yeah.
So, but otherwise, company is very employee centric and flexible work environment. Yeah, it's not a typical 9 to 5 job. It's more of flexible and more of work life balance here.
Oh, good. Good. So I was reading your bio on the Tasting Let's Test page, and it seems you've travelled working around the world. Have you?
Yeah.
How's that kind of impacted your approach to testing? Seeing all the different other approaches to testing.
Well, this is an interesting question. I've been working around the globe, and I lived in the US, in the UK, as well as India, and now in China. And I think, yes, you're right that this testing approach differs whenever you are in a different country or different part of the world. And this is also one of the points that I'm going to discuss at Eurostar in November, Sweden.
Right.
I have a track session planned there as well. And it looks like you have stole my idea of a blog post, which is in draft at this moment. So this is basically, so as you said, if I compare different approaches of testing, I think they differ geographically, demographically, and I would call it a cultural effect. For example, Asians are less confrontational, and they are somewhat shy,
Right.
and and hence they seem to prefer a more standard textbook approach of testing than just being flexible with testing. And as if you notice, context-driven testing is not easily digested here in China. And I won't talk about India because India is changing a lot. I'm in touch with with many testers there. And I see India has accepted context-driven testing very well. If you consider Western cultures and compare with Asian cultures, then you will see that most Western cultures prefer flexibility, and doesn't matter whether it's testing or anything else. But if you talk about CDT specifically, you'll say that CDT, Agile, exploratory testing, all were born in Western world.
Yeah.
So I think that, yeah, it differs a lot. So people here in China, Hong Kong, I'm not too sure about Taiwan and Japan and all those countries, but I see that people keep contacting me about from those countries as well. But I see that, yeah, people are a bit shy in Asia, and they prefer a textbook approach of testing. Like, you need to have a standard and you need to follow the standards to get it done. In my opinion, testing is more of a cognitive process, so you need to think. One has to be a critical thinker to test properly. So things are changing. Well,
So does this tie in with the status you're aiming for in the Asia Pacific region?
pretty much. So when I first arrived in Hong Kong almost 3 years ago, I was very disappointed looking at the status of testing here. I tried to arrange for different testing meetups, and I was very disappointed that people did not turn up. But in the last 3 years, things have changed drastically, I would say, and things are changing positively. And so when I first arranged for a get together, there were hardly 3-4 people, and most of them were my work colleagues. But now I see that last 2 years I have arranged for 3 or 4 more meetups, and the AST has also supported Association for Software Testing. It has supported the events, and I see that last time one of the events there were nearly 35 people. So
Oh,
it's changing. Yeah, it's changing drastically, and I see many positive changes here.
that's good. So you're, as well as within the work environment, you're trying to build up the community as well.
Yes, yeah. It's not only in the work environment. It is in overall Hong Kong, and I tried to cover China as well. So I've created a LinkedIn group, which is Hong Kong and China tester software testing group, and I see that it's almost 150 members. I did not expect that here in Hong Kong when I arrived, but yeah, it's a positive change.
Oh, fantastic. Uh, So moving back to you then, have you always worked in the highly regulated industries?
Not always, but regulated industry is comparatively newer for me. I would say somewhere around 5 years that I have been working in regulated industries, including healthcare, pharmacy, and aviation. So
Yeah.
3 years that I've been here. And before that, when I was working in England as a program test manager with Boots, I was managing their healthcare and pharmacy division. So one of the programs that I was working on, it was about prescription medication, so distribution of prescriptions, and no one would like to get a wrong prescription delivered to them. So it was kind of regulated. And second, now is aviation, which is very complex, but very challenging and very interesting too.
I was going to say, I
I
bet.
have, yeah, I've been working in other areas like mobile and e-learning, finance, insurance, etc. But this is more challenging and more interesting.
That's what I was going to say. What's the comparison between the two? Do you prefer the flexibility of the e-learning and the mobile stuff you're doing compared to the? Okay, I'm guessing it's rigid. I don't know. I haven't worked in a regulated industry such as aviation or pharmacy,
Hmm.
so it's kind of like a big black box to me. I'm really interested to know what goes on inside and what kind of red tape you have to get through in order to get the job done.
Well, in regulated industries like aviation, it depends whether you can be flexible or not. So it depends. One application might not be as difficult to manage. Another, you might have to follow all the processes. So anything which, for example, anything which deals with avionics, which deals with any application which is interfacing or integrating with avionics of the aircraft has to go through local authority, aviation authorities approval, has to go through rigorous testing cycles. there are operational approvals, there are operational testing, there are multiple testing cycles involved in that. But on the other hand, if it is, say, for example, is another application which is only for view in passenger list, even if it is in the aircraft, it doesn't really require that much of testing. So there, in that case, one can be flexible. We can consider context-driven testing in that.
Yeah.
But if something is integrating or interfacing with the aircraft, yes, it has to follow the process. And there are rigorous process. For example, the FAA has its own processes. So we need to follow FAA's processes. We also have to follow processes defined by Hong Kong Civil Aviation Authority. So it differs. When we talk specifically about aviation industry and avionics applications, they are also segregated in different classes. So if it is class A or B or C, so even if they are integrating with avionics, if it is class A, which affects the avionics or which affects the status of the aircraft,
Yep.
it needs to be tested and needs to be approved by FAA or the local aviation authority. So it differs. Very much depends on what kind of application is there. And according to that, we need to apply either CDT or a more standard approach.
Okay, right. So there is some room for context-driven testing in
Yeah.
the highly regulated avionics side of things.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, right.
I'm working on one of the programs where we are trying to establish real-time connectivity between the aircraft and ground. And this is called e-enablement of the aircraft. A pretty massive program, very complex, very interesting. But then in this program itself, there are multiple hundreds of applications where the testing approach differs all the time. So if one application is on the aircraft in the cockpit, I need to test it differently. I may have to involve pilots. But another one which is in the aircraft, even also it is in the cockpit, but is kind of manual reading, then we might not require the pilots to do that, and we can test. So it keeps on changing, and one has to change their stance accordingly. So sometimes it's difficult.
Yeah. I just had images of you following weighty test documents and just and like obviously massive requirement specs for everything. I couldn't see how context-driven could fit in, but yeah, now you've described some examples. That's yeah, it's quite obvious, really.
Mm-hmm. And actually, when I was working with Boots in England, one of the projects was maintaining the quality documents, and there was one big room full of manuals and testing records, because government stipulates that we need to keep the documents for, I think, 10 years or so whenever we distribute medicines to people. And so those documents were stored in a big room, and like hundreds and thousands of records. I was amazed to look at that. I said, can't we digitalize it? And the project manager said, we cannot, because this is government regulation. We need to follow it.
Wowzers. Right.
So all testing reports and testing summary reports and test plans and all. But it's interesting. Sometimes it seems like a pain in, but still you have to do it, and yeah, it's the way it is.
Yeah, and I was speaking to Griffin Jones at Let's Test this year. He works in highly regulated industries, and he did a session on exploratory testing in his context, and he started recording his exploratory testing sessions, and he asked testers to describe what they're doing, as if they're kind of dissecting an animal or whatever, or in the mortuary. And so he can show that to the authorities, so they can see that there's reason behind what they're doing rather than just clicking buttons, which I thought was quite impressive. Yeah,
Yeah, it's interesting, man. Pretty interesting.
yeah, cool. Okay, so moving on to tasting Let's Test. Uh,
Mhm.
how did you get involved in Let's Test?
So I'm a member of Association for Software Testing, and year before I also ran the elections for the board of directors. And I see that people in Australia, there many people in Australia, they are part of AST as well. And I got an invitation in 2011 from David Greenlees, who is also highly known contextual tester in Australia. And he asked me whether I would like to be a part of Australian workshop on software testing in 2011. Unfortunately, I did not have sufficient time that time, but we made good friends from there. And this time when David and Marie Charrett, they were organizing this testing Let's Test, they asked me if I would like to speak in that. So I'm speaking in this, and right before this there is Aussie WST,
Yep.
Australian Workshop on Software Testing. I'm part of that also. So I thought, why not? It's a good idea, opportunity for me to be there. And technically, I'm also an Australian, so to be there and meet family and friends as well. And yes, no more contextual testers in Australia.
That's it, to spread the word.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So as a relative local to Let's Test Oz and tasting Let's Test, what do you reckon your expectations are of the taking the Let's Test conference down there?
Well, it's a very good opportunity for us, especially Australians and contextual testers, to spread the word in Australia and New Zealand. If you see, as I said before, when I compare different approaches of testing in different countries, I see that not only Asia, uh, other countries like Australia and New Zealand, they are also very prone to using standard textbook approaches like ISTQB.
Right.
So, I look at when I look at job applications and job descriptions, the first thing that companies ask for is one has to have a certification like ISTQB. But if you ask me, it's not the standard which helps a tester testing. As I said before, it's a cognitive process. One needs to think from mind to break a software. One has to use critical thinking applications. So if you're not a critical thinker, you can't really break the software. So this was an opportunity to spread the word in Australia. This was an opportunity to ensure that people know about context-driven testing. It was another opportunity to tell people that this is also one of the ways of testing, which is probably a better way of testing. And basically, and about expectations. One is, yes, we should be successful in spreading the word. Another one is we are getting good speakers there. So Tim Coulter will be there, and Mary Charrett is there, Eric Peterson is there. And for Let's Test Aussie, I think James Park is coming and Michael Bolton is there. John Rothman is going to be there, I think. So it's a good opportunity for us. And my expectations are that more and more people will come to know about context-driven testing, and we will have better testing in Australia and New Zealand than just ISTQ certified testers doing. I'm not saying that ISTQ certified testers are not good testers, but I'm saying that we'll have people who use cognition more than a standard checklist of testing.
Just bringing diversity to testing.
Yes, sorry, what is that?
As I say, so bring some diversity into testing. So you have your ISTQ, and also you can start bolstering with context-driven.
Yes, definitely.
Excellent. That's good. And I guess there's people like yourself and Anne-Marie and David looking over towards the US and UK, and I guess having a Let's Test conference down there, get more people looking, I guess.
Yes, yeah.
Excellent. Right, and have you got any inside information or sneak peeks for people thinking of attending your presentation?
Well, my presentation will be I won't disclose too much of information. It should be exciting for people who are coming there, but my session or my presentation will be more around how to test in a mission critical environment, or how to do the stakeholder management, because in such an environment, the stakeholder management is more important than doing a testing approach or what. So when we prepare for testing, we use certain testing scripts, we use certain testing strategies. We try to use context-driven testing to ensure that we are covering everything, and exploratory testing as well, so that we can dig out the defects which are not dug out because of scripted testing. But my presentation is going to be an interesting presentation, and I'm planning to use some natural user interface so that I can make it more interesting for people. So yeah, and people will definitely learn a lot from this presentation around the context-driven testing and exploratory testing, especially in the mission-critical environment.
Fantastic. Good. And is there anything that you'd like to cover? Anything you'd like to raise?
Well, I don't have much, but I would like to say that if we specifically talk about Asia,
Yeah.
and if we say how the different approaches of testing work in Asia, the one thing that was in my mind is, and what I have noted here in Asia, especially Hong Kong, is if you are a PhD in testing, you're taken more seriously. But my expectation from Asia, especially Hong Kong and China, is to change that perspective. And this is why I'm arranging for more testing events in Hong Kong, and I'm trying to get people from Australia as well. I spoke to Eric Peterson, and he was pretty much happy to come here. And he was my colleague before in Cathay, so he's always interested in coming back to Asia. Same for other guys in contextual testing. I have so many friends who are willing to come back to Hong Kong or come to Hong Kong to spread the word, speak about things. And one most important and very interesting thing is Hong Kong government is also supporting testing here.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, so they have plans for promoting software testing in Hong Kong, and even they have put it in the formal plan, IT plan here, and I think they have budget for it. So in the last 1 year, I have attended 2 or 3 government panels on the software testing industry, and they wanted inputs from me as an industry speaker or industry person, industry expert, they say. And I normally say I'm not an expert, but I'm just a learner of software testing. But it is a positive change that Hong Kong government is taking steps and initiatives to promote software testing in this area.
Excellent. So, do you have kind of different challenges with recruitment then? If our recruiters, is it the same model where a recruitment company puts forward CVs for roles, and then you have to say, I'm not as interested in PhD as I am in experience, for example, or do you recruit from outside Hong Kong, which has other complications?
It doesn't have complications, but it's difficult to find people locally. Because Hong Kong people, I reckon, they are not very interested in software testing at this moment, and that's one of the reasons that Hong Kong government is trying to promote it here. So Hong Kong is a small place, yeah, and it's definitely a richer place than in comparison to many of its Asian counterparts. So most of the locals either they go outside, go abroad for higher studies, or they join investment banks and all. So it's a different dynamics here. We personally, I normally get people from other companies outside of Hong Kong. So there are so many people working here from India, and some are from China as well. So India, China, we have people from Australia working here, Philippines, some from even Europe. So different nationalities here. And I don't think that there is major problem recruiting those people, but I prefer hiring people without a PhD and more of a critical bent of mind.
Okay. So, do you think you're going to start trying to get into the education of software testing more? So you can start, so rather than getting them at the end of the conveyor belt, as it were, you can start making changes whilst they're on the conveyor belt.
Hmm. So in that sense, I've been talking to many university people here, like one of the guys I'm speaking to these days is director of software testing or software development lab here in Hong Kong University, and he is very keen to include software testing in the curriculum,
Oh, cool.
which is a positive step again. Yeah, and he has requested me to speak. And last time when I spoke as a software testing expert in one of the Hong Kong Computer Society events, they were very much interested in getting in touch and working on a curriculum. So again, it's a very positive initiative, and I think in a couple of years' time, I won't say that very quickly or very soon, but it will take a few years to get the right kind of status of software testing here in Hong Kong.
Excellent. Yeah, I guess nothing's going to happen overnight, is it?
Yeah, even if it happens, it's not going to change things. Yeah,
Yeah. So,
as easily.
do you have a big cultural barrier to overcome then?
No, sorry, say it again, please.
Sorry, do you have a big cultural barrier to overcome?
Um, Hong Kong is a multicultural society, so I don't think that culture is a major roadblock here.
Cool.
But yeah, it's still Asia is a different culture, even though the people from outside are working here. But yeah, somewhat it does. As I said, Asians are more shy and not very straightforward people. So it will take some time to change that barrier as well.
Right. Okay. Excellent. Cool. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
No, I'm good, Duncan. Thank you very
Excellent.
much.
Well, I want to thank you again, Rajesh, for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Duncan.
Yeah, and
Have a good day.
we'll catch up soon.
Sure. Yes. I'll meet you at Let's Test. Testing Let's Test and Let's Test both.
Hopefully, I'll be at Let's Test Oz. I won't be able to make tasting Let's Test, but Let's Test Oz I'm working on.
All right. Very good. Very good. I'll see you there.
Okay, all the best, Rajesh. I'll catch you in Twitter soon.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
Bye bye. Bye.
Bye.